player that's up to negotiation, they have an obligation to support and represent the rest of the NFL and where this game is going. And I think Mr. Jones just said it. This contract shows where this game is going financially, right? Not just in the quarterback position, but in all the positions. So obviously, years later, when I'm back at it, it'll be in different circumstances. But I think I had a responsibility and obligation to the other quarterbacks and to the other men and even the guys on my team to get this done.
Dak Prescott from Wednesday announcing the new contract finally between Dak and the Dallas Cowboys.
Mike, what are you going to do with yourself? What are you going to do? What are you going to talk about for the next 8 years? You made a cottage industry of Dak Prescott.
Hey, Peter, we're 3 years away from the Cowboys being on the clock to have to renegotiate or see him walk away as an unrestricted free agent. This is not over. This is not over. Round 1 is over. Round 2 is looming. I got 2 things to say, though, based on that clip. He made reference at one point to a comment from Jerry Jones about and Jerry bought into this narrative, this goofy narrative that popped up, that they did this deal because Jerry has some sort of inside information that no one has about who would have guessed the NFL making a bunch of money under the next wave of TV deals. Like that's some justification for losing their shirt at the poker table with Dak Prescott. It's bizarre, but it makes sense because Jerry can't sit up there and say, hey, I lost my shirt at the poker table with Dak Prescott. He's got to make it look like he wanted to do it. He meant to do it. We all know that a huge influx of cash is coming. That's not why this deal was done, Peter. This deal was done because Prescott refused and waited and declined every offer they made. They misread the room. They overplayed their hand, and they undersold Dak Prescott until they had no choice but to give him 4 years, $160 million, a contract that in many ways is the best contract any NFL player has ever signed.
Yeah, it was a very interesting negotiation, Mike. And as you say, this contract, 2 years ago could have gotten done for, pick a number, 32? I don't know. It could have gotten done for a far more reasonable number than this one. And having said that, if you look at the cap number that he played for in 2020, and then you look at what he's going to get in the next 4 years or next 3 years plus a renegotiation, Dak Prescott won. He won by holding the line and by doing what he said he was going to do. He never preached this. He basically let his agent, Todd France, handle this. But he basically was never going to take, 85 cents on the dollar because he was, quote, a Dallas Cowboy, and that's worth so much.
Well, and the reality for the Cowboys is they should have swooped in the moment the window opened on a second contract for Dak Prescott. Right. And technically, the window opened on completion of the 2018 regular season. That day, as soon as that game's over, you can sign him to a new contract. Even before the playoff game, they had a wild card game against the Seahawks that year that they won. Then they lost to the Rams the following week in the divisional round. That's when the window opens to do that second deal. And one thing we've learned through this Dak Prescott exercise is the longer you wait, the more expensive it gets. And it will get expensive to the point where you have no choice but to make him the highest paid player on value at signing in league history at $40 million. You have to make him a record signing bonus offer of $66 million, record payout in year one of $75 million, record full guarantee at signing of $95 million, because the alternative was you pay him $37.68 million this year and he becomes a free agent next year as a practical matter. The counterbalance to that, though, Peter, is Jared Goff, because the Rams surely wish they hadn't paid Jared Goff after 3 years. So it's ultimately incumbent on the team first to know this is our guy, and then to mobilize and make him an offer he can't refuse now, because later it's going to be ridiculously more expensive than it is now. And that's the challenge faced by the Ravens with Lamar Jackson, the Bills with Josh Allen, and the Browns with Baker Mayfield. Question one, is this our guy? If the answer is yes, break the bank now, because the bank is going to be broken and the vault is going to be emptied later.
Yeah, and I think, Mike, there's a lesson to be learned here, okay? And here's the lesson. If you wait and you make somebody, either the highest paid in history or close to it, you have to understand that in many cases, that is your fault. And in this case, I'm blaming Jerry and Stephen Jones. It was their fault that it got to this number because they waited. And the one thing that you know about quarterback contracts, Mike, is that the number never goes down. And it's not necessarily that you pay the best guy the most money. You don't do that. Remember back in 2013, Joe Flacco, I'm going to play it out. I'm going to bet on myself. I'm going to do that. So what happens? He becomes the NFL's first $20 million player. So just imagine this, Mike. In the span of probably a little bit less than 8 years, the NFL quarterback king has gone, and the salary of a quarterback in the NFL, the top guy, has gone from 20 to 40. And even more than that, really, because I don't know how really you consider Patrick Mahomes' contract, because spread out over such a long period of time, I don't know how fair it is to compare it to a 4-year contract for like a Mahomes or or a Watson, or I'm sorry, a Watson or a who am I thinking of?
Dak.
But yeah, Dak, right. But when you think about these contracts, Mike, the biggest thing is that they never go in reverse. And for as smart as Jerry Jones is, I think he totally misread the field 2 years ago, and then even a year ago. He misread it.
Look at that payout. The first 4 years of the current contract, Dak gets $160 over the first 4 years of this contract. The other quarterbacks, the first 4 years of their current contracts, the numbers pale in comparison. There's Mahomes at $103.6 million for the first 4 years of his deal. Peter, I said last year that if the Cowboys had taken the Mahomes contract and just crossed out Chiefs and put in Cowboys and crossed out Mahomes and put in Prescott and handed Dak Prescott last year before the July 15 deadline, because Mahomes did his deal before that deadline, Prescott would have said no thank you. And people lost their minds. How can you say that? It's a $500 million contract. Well, yeah, if you sign for long enough, of course it's going to be a $500 million contract. He committed for a dozen years. Dak is going to get 160, or more likely he's going to get 126 over 3 and then get another contract. Either way, Mahomes is still going to be laboring under this deal, relying on the generosity and the charity of Clark Hunt in ripping up the contract. Not every owner is going to rip up a contract when it becomes obsolete. You think Jerry Jones, if he had a quarterback and that cost certainty baked in for the next 11 years and the market changed, the cap goes up, other players making more, you think Jerry is going to rip that thing up and say, oh, we'll just give you more money because we feel like it? Now, a holdout could force him, like it did with Emmitt Smith in 1993, to act and to fix it. But you don't want to have that commitment and just hope that the owner of the team, who didn't get that level of money by giving it away, is going to, out of the kindness and goodness of his heart, tear up your contract. You want the contract to automatically end. And it's always better to get back to the trough again and again and again. And that's what makes this deal so good for Dak, Peter. He got all those records. Record signing bonus, record first-year payout, record full guarantee at signing, and he's only committed for 4 years. And as I said, he's going to be back after 3, and we're going to be doing this again. He said he's a Cowboy for life the other day. No, he's a Cowboy for 4 more years. And then he's got the leverage to squeeze even more out of them under this threat that maybe he won't be a Cowboy 4 years from now.
I think Patrick Mahomes basically did what Tom Brady did all those years in New England, which, back in 2004 when he did his second contract, or 2005, one of those 2 years, when he did his second contract, he basically told the Patriots, essentially, listen, I'm not going to be a pig here, but I want to make sure that you guys spend to the cap and use the money, whatever I leave here, on players, and spend to the cap every year. And basically the Patriots did that. And that was Brady's thing over the years. He never was a pig, and not to say, that's the wrong word to say, but he never got absolutely the max value for himself in New England. He never did. preferring to basically say to the team, as long as you spend the money on the rest of the team, I'm okay. And that, to me, when I saw the Patrick Mahomes contract, after the initial, whoa, can you believe that? After that, you basically say, when you look at it like 6, 7, 8 years down the road, you know, those numbers that he's going to be making, even though they're $48 million or whatever it is, that could be like 12% of the cap then. So, you know, to me, Mahomes did something that was very, very team friendly, even though everybody would say, are you out of your mind? But he did.
Well, and that's where Dak's point that he had some sort of an obligation to maximize his earnings as a favor to other quarterbacks elsewhere, that by getting the absolute most. And this is true. When you push it as far as you can, you, number one, you put the bar higher so the next guy can jump it, but you also give other guys a chance to fall in behind. So the more Dak gets, the more these other guys can get. Tom Brady consistently didn't push it, and it made it harder. And there was a period, Peter, from about 2013 to 2017 where the quarterback market stagnated. And part of that was Brady was clearly the best quarterback in that time, and he didn't push for every last penny. And it makes it harder for lesser quarterbacks to push for more when Tom Brady is making X. It makes it harder for guys on the Patriots to get paid when Tom Brady's taking less, and it makes it harder for other quarterbacks.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.